DinoBabers.com.
Top 5 coaches on the hot seat meter as we get towards the end of the season. Number 5, cooling off a little, Dana Holgorsen. If they get to a bowl game, which a win over Cincinnati would get them one game closer, and a win over UCF, a team they've played a lot, would get them in, then or a wild upset against Oklahoma State. But I mean, let's not get crazy here. But I would say that while there's still going to be heat around him, it's cooling off a little bit, because if he can get them to 6-6, especially the way that they've kind of rolled through this first season of the Big 12, I think that that's something you can pause, because I don't think they want to get rid of him. And he's got a lot of allies there. But like Craig said last week, this is a school that a couple years ago said we fire coaches for going 8-4 at the University of Houston.
Yeah, I mean, they're still a game under 500. Yeah. So, I mean, great they beat Baylor, but I think it took all of 15 minutes watching that game to realize that wasn't some grand accomplishment. Now it will be in the record books. They went into Waco, they beat a Big 12 mainstay in their first year, and it'll all look a lot better than it actually was in reality. But yeah, I mean, they got that win. They got very fortunate to beat West Virginia on a Hail Mary. And those are their 2 Big 12 wins. So, besides that, you've beaten Sam, who stinks, and you've beaten UTSA in the opener by a field goal. So I'm not super optimistic about where they are. If they get to a bowl game, though, then yeah, I think that's a great accomplishment given where they started off. I think that the Baylor win is big. It's just not. It doesn't prove that they're a good team.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's had to have cooled off just a tiny bit, but certainly not off the burner entirely.
No.
Yeah.
Number 4, still warm, but Sam Pittman got the win over Florida. That's got to maybe show some kind of maybe buoys a little bit. I just think that this doesn't change the fact that Arkansas is just kind of there, because if you really look at it right now, Florida is just kind of there, and they're not the Urban Meyer Florida or the Steve Spurrier Florida. They're not even the Dan Mullen Florida right now. They are Jim McElwain Florida again, and Billy Napier, still struggling to do that. But I would say that you get a win like that, you see what happens towards the end of the year and go. But I mean, even still, he's still on a hot seat. He did do something to maybe go, okay, well, maybe he can find something if he's got the resources.
Go ahead. Anything?
No, I just thought the note by Berkowitz that at least locks him in.
Yeah.
You wonder if that, because they're going to have to pay more money because of where he is, no matter if they lose their last 3, more money, and are they going to write the check if, in fact, if they fade at the end?
Well, it's a lot of excitement for a 3rd win on the year.
Yeah.
But I do think that the buyout does probably help his case quite a bit. They're going to have to win out to go to a bowl game. That doesn't seem likely. They'll probably beat FIU, but are they going to beat Auburn and Missouri to close out the year? Now, both those games are at home, so who knows? I mean, they don't leave, again, the home turf. So, 3 home games to close out the season. One of those definitely is a win. The other 2, we'll see. But to beat an Auburn, I think, would definitely help his case this weekend. To beat Missouri at the end of the year, maybe you're closing strong and you've really got an argument there. But, just 3-6 still. And like you said, I mean, they went into the swamp, though, too. It was a swamp, but like you said, it's not even a good Florida team. But, hey, they won a fun game. At the end and in hostile territory, and they really needed that. So that was a good thing for Sam Pittman and company for sure.
3. There was a lot of Daffy Duck in there. I'm sorry. Rising fast is Dave Aranda. And I think we're just at the point where we kind of can't get around this anymore and talk around it in circles. The way forward for them, especially if they finish 3-9, which they are likely to do based on the fact that they will not be favored in any of these games. And the worst team that they are playing right now is a team that they can never figure out a way to beat in TCU. So history and numbers are against them, and just the way they've played has been wholly uninspiring. And then if you're the administration, you have to look down the barrel of trying to sell Dave Aranda coming back and finding a way to shoot some energy into this program. But man, I just I'll just tell you, I cannot see a way through. I cannot see a way through that works out for him.
I can see a way through, but it means that your fan base is pretty checked out next year.
Yeah.
Because going through another offseason of the transfer portal and signing day and all of that, like it'd be one thing if they had a bunch of stars on the line that they're about to reel in, but they attacked the transfer portal heavy last year, mixed results at best, to non-factors in some cases. So that's not a guarantee of anything. We just got through like the talk of all the talented young players they have, but the fact that in this day and age you can't say that you're going to be able to hold on to them all, especially the ones that play well. They're getting phone calls and DMs right away. Caden Jenkins, among others, I'm sure. So, I mean, even your young guy like Richard Reese, total non-factor this year, who had a big year last year. So, like, I just don't know what the plan is. I mean, if it takes this long for you to develop guys, then nobody has that kind of time because that should have been happening the last couple of years. You don't have another year to like, well, we'll just wait until they're juniors. You can't do that today in college football. And you really couldn't do that, period, but you especially can't do it today to take, your sweet time and getting these guys geared up and ready. I'm like you. I just don't know what they could possibly do other than winning out. And even then, like it would, if they won out, that would be mightily impressive. But there's just no reason whatsoever from any performance this year to believe there is anything other than a 0% chance of that happening. Because they're going to get blown out this weekend. And if they don't, it's a miracle if they don't get blown out in Manhattan.
I asked this question. He knows. He even brought it up himself before I did about the storm around his name. They signed him an extension in 2021. Did anybody bitch about that?
No.
12-2, is anyone? I'm not defending Dave Aranda. Has they ever had a better football team than 12-2?
No.
I know that they're going backwards, and the fear is, and what Mack Rhodes has to decide is, are they about to be lapped? Have they already been lapped? And if they do stay status quo, does he trust the staff to find a way to fill that roster up and quickly and do it right?
I understand it was the greatest year in school history, but it was also 2 years ago, and how much magic does that really have? I mean, you get a 3-4 year buffer for winning the Big 12 in a Sugar Bowl? Is that what the rules are? Because I don't think that it should work that way. He should get a little bit of a grace period. Guess what? That was last year. Guess what? That's most of this year. There's no signs it gets better next year. So, I mean, how long does that last? How much goodwill does that give you? And I'll put it the way I put it in Good, Bad, the Ugly. This is as simple as I can put it. And I like Dave Aranda. I don't want him to be fired. I want him to be a successful head coach here. But this is how I have to wrap my own brain around it. You at one point in time, not long ago, were nationally relevant, pretty much consistently. You're nowhere close to nationally relevant now. You're a complete afterthought nationally. You're an ESPN Plus brand at the moment. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to be nationally relevant all the time. You're an afterthought and not relevant in the Big 12, where at least every year you are somewhat competitive. The only reason you're not at the bottom is because there's new schools that are brand new to the league who are adjusting, like Cincinnati and UCF. Other than that, BYU's above you, and now Houston's above you with the head-to-head win. So you're not even relevant within the conference. Okay, that's fine. Let's brush that up. How about the state of frickin' Texas? You've lost to Texas State at home. You've lost to Texas at home. You've lost to Texas Tech at home. You've lost to freaking Houston at home. And you're probably not going to beat TCU because you never do. So you are at best borderline 8-9 in the state. Not to mention SMU's joining the ACC and throwing millions upon millions of dollars at their football product. Like I said, you lost to Texas State and Houston, two teams you at least had a leg up on, but now that's not even the case. So that's as damning as I can make it sound. You're not even relevant within your own state at this point in time. So that to me is something that dawned on me thinking about it yesterday, and I hate that it's got to that point, but that's as clear as I can make it of the problem they find themselves in right now.
Well, you need to be on the judge and jury then, because you wrapped it up pretty well.
Yeah.
And again,
if he was the prosecuting attorney, and I got up and I was
I guess
we like him.
I guess that my deal is I hate to see people fired.
Oh, me too.
Let me say something. I hate to see people fired, and everybody does. And I know that coaching business, that's part of it. And he mentioned today twice, he knows that this is a business. And, man, from 12-2, a genius to the Jedi. Well, at that time in that season, What I heard during that season is when he took Matt Rule's players and made them better and found better fits for them and got them in even more opportunities to play well. Even though Rule's last year, they were pretty good. In 21, that's what I heard. Now it is he won with Matt Rule's players. And that's probably very true, too. And so it's just amazing how things can change. And that's why what I don't understand, and at some point, if there is a change, question for Mack Rhoades might be, why did you extend him? Because you were worried about him leaving for USC? Were you worried about him leaving for Wisconsin or Oklahoma or elsewhere? And that is that nuclear arms race, not with facilities, but coaching salaries, and how they've gotten out of control in these extensions. And, man, you wonder sometimes how many people – there's going to be somebody that, whether it's Leipold or Kleiman, they've already signed extensions, and they're both really good. Somebody else is going to get extension. And it's just like you almost are competing against yourself. But in that case, you had competition.
Not almost. In almost every instance,
but in that year, the fear was he could bolt. And if he would have bolted and Mack Rhoades would have let him leave, and then they go 5-6 or 6-7 – Mack Rhoades is under a lot of heat, too. People would have lost their shit on him.
Yeah,
they would have.
That's true. Number 2, ablaze. Dino Babers, the seat there at Syracuse, they're 0-5 in the ACC right now after starting out 4-0. And this has kind of been the year over and over and over and over again for Syracuse. Dino Babers has had some success. He's not having success at Syracuse now. He's a really good offensive coach. I'm not sure, what the future holds there, but right now, like Syracuse has been an afterthought in every conference they've been in football since Donovan McNabb and Marvin Harrison left, and they have these moments where it looks like they're kind of trending up, and then they fall back down again. Last year, it looked like they'd maybe turn the corner. This year, they start out 4-0, and they're 0-5 since then. And I don't think Dino Babers is going to make it out of upstate New York this year.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure we're missing out on some guys that have made the NFL, but I don't think it's good when you're always having to cite players who have been retired for like several years at this point from the NFL. It's like, and they had Donovan McNabb. It's like he's been retired for 7 years from his pro career. So, I mean, I get it though, but that's kind of a sign. I mean, they made a bowl game last year, so there was that, but hard pressed to really polish it up too much when you're dead last in the conference. So. I mean, that's not a program I honestly spend a whole lot of time thinking about. It's Syracuse. And I'm sure they feel the same way, when Baylor's mentioned or Iowa State or, some Big 12 programs. But, he's been there a very long time at this point for a coach. And it's kind of is what it is at this point. You're hovering between 5, 6, and 7 wins basically most years. And right now they're right up against maybe winning 5 or 6 games again. So, it just feels like they're sort of paddling water at this point.
All right, Paul.
And number 1, the humanity, Jimbo Fisher. This is like, there's not like loud noise around this, which if I'm Jimbo Fisher, I'm actually concerned about, because before Dennis Francione and Kevin Sumlin got fired, Mike Sherman maybe not so much. That situation kind of just petered out, but with particularly Dennis Francione and Kevin Sumlin, I could sit here if you found a quiet spot in Waco, if I turned and listened towards the south, you could hear people yelling about those guys and firing them. Not hearing that yet from the big people at A&M, because again, his contract is so prodigious, but if they're going to pay him anyway, I think there's 2 schools of thought. One, you get rid of him and see what happens. And then there's the other ones let's see how he does against Texas and Oklahoma. And I'm not sure they really want that. Do you really want to go through that? Do you want to
lose another year? Yeah.
Let him stay and then watch Steve Sarkisian roll into College Station next year and beat A&M? Do you want to see that? And maybe he still will or won't with a different coach, but I can tell you right now, if you're telling me Sark versus Jimbo, whatever field you want to, I'm taking Sark every time. Every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good. I've heard some A&M fans that have made their decision's pretty clear, and the line's been drawn in the sand. So I definitely heard some people outspoken about this just isn't working and there needs to be a change. But I think the problem you run into is the buyout for one, although we all acknowledge that the buyout can be paid, but it's just it's the other part that you just mentioned there is, are you really better off, like next year, for example, if you fire Jimbo right now? Who's the guy? You going to bring Elko back? Is that the plan?
Yeah.
You going to go money whip somebody else? I mean, who's even out there that's a great candidate at this point? You'll get Matt Campbell? Like, I don't know, because Jimbo was the big swing. So I don't know how many other big swings are really out there. And, yeah, do you want to restart, basically? Although nobody has to really restart these days.
Yeah.
But do you want to press a little bit of a reset button the very first year that Oklahoma and Texas come rolling in, knowing damn well they don't need to reset anything? Like, Sark's the guy. Venables is the guy. You know, they're having pretty successful seasons, even though Oklahoma's taking a couple of lumps. Yeah, I don't know. Are you basically just throwing your hands up as far as next year goes with those new teams rolling in? Or do you feel like, hey, he's been around a little while. That'll give us a slight advantage with them rolling in, and let's see what happens, next year. And if he loses to Texas, then boom, that's the final straw. Or if he loses to Oklahoma and Texas, that's the final straw. Yeah, I don't know. That's the big money broker's big decision to make here eventually. But yeah, it's they're becoming a bit of an afterthought.
The same guys who decided they could throw a ton of money at a 10-year deal with basically no out and a massive buyout are the ones that are going to end up writing the check to get rid of him if that time comes, and then go give more money to somebody else.
So if you start,
why don't they fire the ones making the decision?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And if you start from Jackie Sherrill on, now before Jackie Sherrill, Texas owned the A&M rivalry. But since Jackie Sherrill, plus the school has changed a lot. It used to be just an all-male military school. From Jackie Sherrill on for a while, A&M had finally pulled even with Texas. And towards the end of the Southwest Conference, they were ahead of them for a little bit. But like everybody else that's been in the Southwest Conference of the Big 12, no one has been able to kill the dragon. They just put him to sleep for a little while and wait till he eats. And then, so they've got to figure out how they can keep, they're never going to kill the dragon, is my point. Yeah. They've got to figure out how to keep pace with them like they were doing before, but I do think they've got the wrong thing in their head of if we do this, we'll finally kill the dragon. You're not killing the dragon, man. No. Just try to keep pace.
Well, I mean, between 2011, they had the Sugar Bowl with Sam, and there's been a couple of moments, but if you were going to do it, you had your opportunity over the last 10 years to do that. And nobody was able to finish it off. Baylor, looking like they were going to they're never going to jump Texas by any. No. But I mean, as far as discussion and whatnot, and then their scandal happens, and then it blows up, and then A&M has Johnny Football, and then we've seen how that's petered out with Sumlin and now Jimbo as well, and yeah, you're never going to kill that dragon, but they'd had the best opportunity to at least put up the best fight for it, and yeah, they got a big decision to make, man, on how they want to proceed with that moving forward.
Thank you, Paul. Craig, somebody in the chat room to close it out. Craig